It turns out I was already copywriting before I knew what copywriting was.
Yeah.
So I accidentally found my non-clinical career. I was writing a bunch of stuff for a nonprofit school that I was volunteering with. And then eventually, one of the parents in that school made a comment that said, she said, "You write great copy." And I had no idea what that meant. I actually.
Well, hey, Krista, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing pretty well, thanks.
I'm excited about talking with you around the topic of getting into copywriting and marketing strategy, especially like bridging from a clinical role into that kind of role. But before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional background, and kind of what got you into doing the copywriting and the marketing strategy that you're doing on now?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Well, I'm an occupational therapist and I practiced for about 10 years and primarily all with adults and geriatrics. I was in hospitals, the intensive care units, subacute rehab, outpatient, home health, kind of the whole gamut of the spectrum. And I I have to say I loved it for the most part. And for a lot of years, I thought it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I enjoyed it. But then we moved to a more rural location where I just didn't have as many opportunities and didn't have a team. I think that's one of the biggest things also to have a good speech therapist and PT kind of by your side. It makes all the difference. And so that's what kind of prompted me to start looking other directions. And it turns out I was already copywriting before I knew what copywriting was.
Yeah.
So I accidentally found my non-clinical career. I was writing a bunch of stuff for a nonprofit school that I was volunteering with. And then eventually one of the parents in that school made a comment that said, she said, "You write great copy." And I had no idea what that meant. I actually heard the word copy and was like slightly offended
Yeah.
or
Like, I'm
at
not
least
copying people's stuff
worried.
here.
Exactly. Yeah. I was like, well, I didn't copy it from anywhere, especially, coming from clinicians where we're very
Yeah.
aware and just really don't want to be copying anybody's anything. And she was
Yeah.
like, "No, copywriting. It's like what you're doing with the emails and the donor letters and the marketing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But I still didn't really know what she meant. So I went Googling and found some rabbit holes to fall down. Then I got targeted for all the ads for copywriting courses and copywriting
Yeah.
careers, which, they work, right? And that's when I decided that I was going to give this whole copywriting thing a try.
Nice. Yeah. So, yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways we can go down there. I kind of want to talk to you about like, oh, what books have you read or courses have you taken that are worth it? But for those that might not like really have a clear understanding, like we say the word copywriting, we say we're writing copy. Some people are thinking ads, some people are thinking, design or whatever. Like, what do we mean by copywriting, and then why is it a valuable skill?
Yes. We joke in my house that maybe my next career will be one that's like very clear and easy to
Yeah.
understand. Because occupational therapy, people don't tend to know what that is or really
Yeah.
have a good grasp on it. And I was always explaining what we do and why we do it and like why it's valuable. So then I switch into copywriting, which a lot of people mistake for like trademark types of things.
Yeah.
And that's, because if you get a copyright, it's essentially similar to a trademark, but copywriting is more on the marketing side. It's essentially, going back to the whole what copying, you kind of copy the words of the audience or the people who need a product or a service, and then you put that into the marketing and weave it into the marketing so that they see themselves in the marketing and they see their problem reflected back to them and resonate with it and understand why the solution is good for them or will work for them. So essentially, copywriting is a style of writing that connects people to solutions that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and obviously, like the why that would be valuable is like, well, anybody who has anything, a solution to offer, a device to offer, or a product or a service or something like that, copywriting
mhm.
is a major component in driving sales and growing the business, right?
Yeah, yeah. And there's a whole bunch of, as you know, there's a whole bunch of marketing strategy that goes alongside copywriting. But I truly did just start as a copywriter. I didn't understand the strategy or really much of the big picture. I mean, you learn that over time. Just like as a therapist, you come in and you kind of have a narrow focus and you treat one thing and you kind of have the big picture, but over time you develop more and more understanding and can treat more holistically. So it works the same with copywriting. I was just writing content or blogs or some emails to start with, and now I do more of that full picture strategy, and then the writing is just one little element
Yeah.
of my services. Yeah. And a lot
Yeah.
of
So,
I
so
think a
early
lot of
on, then when
clinicians
you're,
who,
oh, sorry, carry on.
oh, sorry. I think a lot of clinicians who do want to sell a product or a course or
Uh-huh.
services kind of assume that people will find it and just understand it,
Yes.
but it's really not how it works. And so you have to market things in order to sell them.
Yeah. The whole if you build it, they will come is not very applicable unless you happen to build it like right on a highway with a bunch of people that are driving right by, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So early on, then, when you were just like you're doing this copy, you don't know you're writing copy, but you're doing it, and someone tells you, and you start exploring, what were some of those maybe initial resources or books or anything that you came across? You were like, oh man, this is really helping hone the skill, or maybe even thinking about copy. Because I don't know if you've experienced this. I feel like after reading some of these books and doing this my own for on my own businesses, it's like I read an advertisement now and I'm almost like taking notes. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing there. That's nice. I like it. Oh, I'm going to think about like incorporating that into something. So what early on did you read that kind of opened your eyes to, okay, this is copywriting and this is kind of the formula or the structure? Like, I guess early resources would be nice.
Yeah, I started out with a lot of the free
Okay.
courses that, and if you just Google copywriting course, you're going to get bombarded with advertisements and search results that will pop up at you. And I kind of initially thought that maybe I would just get away with taking some free courses and
Yeah.
launch my business, but it didn't really work that way. And I did end up choosing like a paid program that went through how to start a business and also all the foundations of copywriting and how it's what I wanted was like how it's different from academic writing and how it's different from
Yes.
like charting, because those are all very different styles of writing. And I also looked for a course that had a community component or like some way to get feedback from the creator. And that's what I recommend. I mean, depending on if you have any business experience or not, join a course or a program that teaches you how to start a business, because there's a lot to that. For a traditional clinician, we have kind of no idea
Yeah.
stepping into it. But then
Yeah,
also how you can
that's a
get
huge piece
feedback.
too. Yeah, I think a lot of people they get a skill like copywriting and they like hang a shingle out, and like you said there's the whole back end, like what you're doing for clients, especially if you're doing copywriting and marketing, like you have to do that for your own business in order to keep the business going so that you can get more clients. So it's
Hmm.
one of those like overlooked things. I know early on, I think I read, I'm trying to look and see if it's on my shelf. I know I read The Ultimate Sales Letter by Dan Kennedy. That one was a good one. And like a bunch of that direct response stuff was very foundational in my early entrepreneurial journey. I was like, okay, this is like
Hmm.
the strategy I'm going to take. This is the avenue that I'm going to go. When you were taking these courses, did they focus on anything in specific, like direct response marketing, or was it kind of this broader view, or did they kind of teach you the different segments of like, I guess, marketing strategies and how to drive business?
Hmm. Initially I was thinking I would just write blogs for people. That was
Uh,
kind of what was advertised as like the easiest way to start. This was before ChatGPT hit the
yeah,
scene and like everybody
everybody
thinks
could
that,
do it.
you can just write a blog with ChatGPT. Yeah, which it helps, right? But if you still don't know what makes a good blog, you can't use that tool to like create anything useful. But the course I took really was a pretty broad perspective and taught a lot of different types of copy. And then since then, I have taken additional courses for email marketing specifically and sales page copywriting and funnel strategy, because that's the
Okay.
direction I decided I liked going versus
Yeah.
websites. And I don't write many blogs anymore. I will write them for clients when I've worked on the rest of their funnel, and then we're
Uh-huh.
looking at that attraction piece, like how do we drive traffic and get them in their world and then into my funnel. Then we can put blogs up that really pull people in and send them that direction.
Yeah. So I guess explain you kind of just laid out like there's different specializations even within copywriting. So I guess like if somebody's even thinking about copywriting, it is fairly broad. So what are some of the big areas that maybe you've explored or that you've seen or that maybe you have experience in? Like you just mentioned like landing pages versus
Mm-hmm.
blogs versus email versus advertising and like how all those kind of play
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I actually was pretty excited about when I got into copywriting and got rolling, is that I could specialize. Because
Yeah.
in my OT career, I was always floating to different buildings. I worked in a lot of like underserved rural areas, and I had to do everything and
Yeah.
be kind of everything to everybody. And
Yeah.
that's just really hard. So I never felt like I really mastered any one area. So with copywriting, I was like, oh, I can do this different.
Yeah.
So I mean, websites are one big area, and pretty much every business that launches eventually wants or needs a website. And so there's copywriters who specifically focus on websites and the structure and functionality of those, and also the SEO or search engine optimization.
Yeah.
Because you can write a beautiful website, but if it doesn't show up in Google, it's pretty
And
much
no,
useless.
yeah, you
Like,
might as well not have built it, right?
yeah, yeah. And then direct response copywriting, which is what you mentioned, you kind of learned a lot about to start with, is really you put information out there and you want, as it says, like a direct response from the reader. You want them to take action, to sign up for a course or put in their email address to get a free course or get into the marketing funnel, essentially. And I think that has been really fun because there's just more action to it
Yeah.
from my perspective. And I don't know, maybe I just wanted like more immediate results with my work. But also content writers, I kind of looked at content writing for a while, but it's it just is a lot slower role in that
Uh-huh.
side of things. But a lot of clinicians that I've talked to start there or really enjoy that because you get to take your expertise and just pour it into a blog, and you can make this very helpful, very in-depth blog post about a topic that you love, and readers can find that and help themselves, especially if they're waiting for a doctor or a specialist or they don't have them in their community. So those are
Yeah.
three really
Th-
big areas.
like almost like technical writing where it's you're basically and I'm a big fan of telling other clinicians even if they're like in clinical practice to do this as part of their strategy just for either personal brand development or like for the clinic. It's like, listen, if you're putting out like you have a lot of specialized knowledge bouncing around in between your ears, if you can take it and put it onto paper, so to speak, or on a website in a
Mm-hmm.
way that's going to be consumable and understandable and engaging, like that is a big skill. And you're doing like
Mm-hmm.
it is valuable. It's not like I think a lot of times when you talk to people about copywriting and sales and marketing, like a lot of clinicians are like, ew, icky. I don't want to do that. But if you tell them, listen,
Yeah.
you're just going to basically share your clinical expertise to help patients or prospective patients, like that's a much more palatable thing at the beginning, and then it's kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
gateway drug into online marketing for them, right?
Yes, for sure. And I also like to reframe that next step. You have the content, and we can get clinicians on board for that because you're just educating. And then I said it, but at some point, if you don't invite them into your
Yes.
clinic or invite them to your services, they're not going to get any better. Like, and they're a lot of times people are waiting to hear that next step or to know like what to do. And if we don't provide that like sales piece where we throw out the line and give an invitation,
Yeah.
then people just read information on a website or watch a YouTube video and they don't know what to do with it. They think like, "Oh, okay, that's great," but they continue struggling. So the sales piece is really inviting them to solve that problem.
Yeah. Making the ask, right? That call to action. I
Mm-hmm.
was I was just talking to somebody about how like that is one of the just that the ability to do that, or the willingness to do that, is one of those things that is so linked to like success in a lot of ways. And a lot of it is like, you don't need to be oftentimes the smartest or the brightest or the most talented or the most skilled, but the person that provides the opportunity is going to get a whole lot more yeses than the person that never asks, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you just, you have to assume that you will be rejected or told
Yeah.
no multiple times, but like, that's okay. They'll go somewhere else, or maybe it's just not the right time, and they'll circle back to you when the problem gets worse and they go, okay, now I really need some help.
Exactly. Yeah. I've said this on the podcast before several times, but like, I have people either on the clinical business or like the consulting business who have been on my email list for 3-4 years sometimes, and then they're showing up in a message, or they're showing up at the clinic. Oh yeah, I've been getting your emails since like 2021, and it finally got to the point where I figured I should reach out. Like, there's a small percentage of the market that's going to say yes right away, and then there's a larger percentage that you have to work on for a while, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you just have to continue to show up and build trust.
Yeah.
Like, and when you're consistently talking about the same topics and the same way you can help, and you give examples and show them how you helped someone else, eventually people start to go, oh, maybe he can help me also. Like, yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, exactly. So, so you got into the copywriting, kind of built that skill out, and then you saw that, okay, there's more to copywriting than just writing a specific blog or specific, maybe even an ad campaign or an email funnel. And you kind of moved into that. We call it marketing strategy, even though it's kind of nebulous, but you kind of moved into that higher level kind of strategic thinking. So how did that transition look? Was it one of those, you started doing it with the clients that you were already doing some copy for, and it just kind of naturally morphed? Or did you notice, okay, I could provide a whole lot more value, or the opportunity is there? Like, kind of walk us through that process, the transition from I'm copywriting maybe on a specific piece of content or campaign to, okay, I'm going to start doing more high level stuff.
It was really a little bit of both at the same time. Part of it was a lot of my clients are clinicians, and it's not that they don't understand business. They've taken the business programs. They're highly intelligent, as most clinicians are. But it was they kind of knew what they wanted, and then I would write it for them, but maybe they wouldn't implement it, or maybe they would implement it, but like a piece was missing. And so then it wasn't working like we wanted it to work. And I was noticing those things like over and over and over again, especially 2023. It was like the year of people not being able to implement their projects. And there was just this rash of businesses that just couldn't put the rest of the pieces together. And I said, okay, it's doing you no good whatsoever sitting in your Google Drive. And then I just decided I will learn how to work the back end of all the email systems, and started very inexpensive, saying, how about I implement for you for like $100 or something super cheap. So it was almost a no-brainer. It gives me experience, and then they could get their email sequence up and running, and then they would start seeing the outcomes with it. And then some other people, they would ask for maybe a sales page, but that's not just what they needed, or they didn't have the rest of the funnel put together. So really ethically, like, I couldn't charge them for a sales page and write it when there was nothing else in their funnel that would work, because I knew that they would earn nothing off of that sales page with no traffic coming to it. So then I would introduce the topic of like the funnel and the rest of it, and pretty soon I was like, I think I'm not just a copywriter anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I need to just claim the name marketing strategist and come to clients with solutions instead of waiting for them to not see the solution. And it has accelerated our work a lot with existing clients. And I'm excited to get more clients in, because I already know that, you have the full picture instead of like just a little piece of it now.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. I think that like when I moved back and started doing a lot of the strategic thing, what I realized too is that the clients that were coming to me were now not just viewing me as a vendor anymore. It wasn't like, oh, he's just the guy that does our copy, or he's the guy that does our ads or whatever. Like, you really start taking on a more like they view you as a marketing or a business development expert, and that relationship, just when it came to the dynamic of the buy sell engagement and the negotiations even, and the discussions around what a project might cost and what it would look like you're able to have much more high level discussions about value versus like hourly rate and like the long term value creation for the organization. I'm curious if you've noticed the same thing, like the clients that are coming to you now that you're doing this marketing strategy tend to be more profitable. Maybe they tend to already be a little bit more bought in, and the question is not just should we hire you, but it's like, what are the details that we need in order to make this thing work out, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And the other question tends to be like, what else can you take off our
Yeah.
plate for us? Like, how can we expand this a little bit? And a lot of the business owners who understand that there's strategy behind it they've taken a lot of courses on their own. And so when I bring it up, they go, oh yeah, like I've learned that along the way. And then they see that it's more value.
How it fits into the bigger picture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the difference in if you were putting it in rehab terms of just having someone come in and just do like a few exercises versus really looking at their whole life and their posture and their hobbies and putting it all together to then make them live a better life ongoing, no matter what the injury might be.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool deal.
Yeah.
Any thoughts? You already shared some, and you kind of mentioned it in like we took the business course. I recommend taking a business course. Any thoughts you have on starting a business and what clinicians may want to consider as they're getting up and running? You know, like I think you get a large swath, like the pendulum swings both ways. You have some people that are like, quit and go all in on this business, and some people are like, build it as a side hustle for 6 to 12 months and then kind of step. Like, what are your thoughts on maybe that piece, on the starting, like how should you start it, and then maybe things clinicians might want to consider as they're putting the pieces in place in building this thing that could potentially replace their clinical work?
I'm pretty conservative, and especially like with finances, I think safety and stability are like the most important, especially like we both have families. It's not responsible in my view to just like quit your job and go all in on something unless there's really dire circumstances. I think it's best to build it on the side and then eventually like switch to PRN and do PRN for a while as you're like growing your business and as you're getting traction. Like what I did is I was still PRN with the hospital, and I just said yes less and less and less until I got to the point where I was like, okay, I have to like let this job go because I never say yes anymore. Like, they know that I'm not coming in. And then like anytime they would call, I would see the number pop up, and I just had this like, oh shoot, because I didn't want to say yes, and I was busy and I needed my time, and I was like, oh, I've reached that tipping point at this point. So I think I understand the whole thought process of when you go all in, it's like do or die and you just make it work.
Sink or swim, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I think it's smart to build it on the side and keep going. I think the biggest like holdback I see with clinicians is that we come from a highly regulated field and someone else tells us like if we can do the thing or not. And there's none of that in marketing. So you just have to decide for yourself, like, I am a copywriter now, and you just go forth with that. And then I am a marketing strategist. You just move forward with it. I mean, you can have the education to back you up or any sort of certification or whatnot, but it's really not regulated. And so you just internally, we have to trust ourselves and claim it and move forward, which I think is hard for clinicians because it's results, so
right?
different.
I think it's one of the great things about professional services, marketing, even graphic design and stuff like that is like, it's not regulated, but that also means one of the bad things about those fields is they're not regulated. So there's a lot of, you know, not nefarious, but maybe just incompetent people that are offering these services. So it is incumbent upon you, like, that kind of stuff gets me excited. Like, I love being able to sit down with a client and be like, listen, this is what we did for a company that was just like you. Boom, this is the process. This is how it worked. Can't guarantee you that you're going to get these results, but I can guarantee you we're going to follow this process, right? And there's a lot of that in, like, the quote-unquote unregulated markets where you have to demonstrate value.
Yeah. I've actually seen two really frustrating like websites recently where clinicians paid some company somewhere, I don't know who they were, like I was like, if you
Yeah.
have questions, call me and I will refer you to a website person.
Yeah.
But the websites were just trash. Like it looked like a template that really hadn't been edited, and the mobile version is not even optimized, and like pictures and words collide on the pages. And I was like, this is why you have to like really do your homework to find out
Yeah.
who you are hiring, and like you said, look at the results they provide and make sure they can do the work, because it just like gets under my skin when I see clinicians taking advantage of like that. I'm like, oh, don't do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's something to be said about that too. Like, especially you've probably seen it. I know I've seen it over the last 2 years. It seems like the amount of discussion on social media around I'm done being a clinician, I want to go do non-clinical work or start a business or whatever has steadily been increasing, and people that are marketing services are noticing that, right? And there's a lot of ad dollars. I see it all the time now whenever I log into Facebook to check some ads or something like that, back end or whatever, and I go to like my profile, like the ads that are popping up are like, start your non-clinical business now, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, transition out, whatever they're selling. And it's not just one or two big players, it's like tons and tons. So there's a lot of noise now in the market. And I always tell clinicians that have come to me talking or asking advice about that kind of stuff, it's like, listen, you want to do your homework, like you said, find a good or at least maybe on the surface, a service provider that looks like they know what they're talking about, and then go check references, right? Like go see their portfolio, go talk to somebody that they've helped before, because otherwise it does not take much to set up a digital marketing agency, right?
Yeah, you could really put up a digital marketing agency over the weekend and Monday start hitting people and trying to get them as clients. I mean, there is nothing holding anyone back from trying it, which is, like you said, a double-edged sword. It's good and bad. Yeah. I also like to look at how long they've been doing it. If it's, I understand we all have to start somewhere, and like just like working with clients as an OT, the first year of treatments, I mean, if I could go back and redo them, I would.
Yeah. All the things you would do differently, right?
Yes, but it is what it is. And so, check their price point versus their experience, because in that first year, my prices were pretty darn low because that's where I was comfortable, and I had to prove to myself that I could get results. And it's, my prices have increased since then because my experience is also higher and I have outcomes from clients that I can show. So I think just looking at all of those pieces is a really good idea if you're hiring someone.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people that are starting out, like those first two clients that you get in whatever professional services you're doing, like are gold to you in more ways than one. The first way is like they've trusted you to take a risk on somebody who has no background. So those types of people come back to me every now and then, and I'm like, I've been doing this work for 7 years, and they'll reach out to me still, and I'm like, yeah, whatever it is, we're having a call, we're doing whatever, because y'all y'all were there, y'all took the risk on me when I was new and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And then like you said, adjusting your price as you get more experience or as you can demonstrate those results, then it makes sense to raise the prices. But there are a lot of people that want to get into the game and charge like 15 grand to build a website, and it's like, have you ever built a website before? Like, maybe you want to charge a little less.
Yeah. Get some experience first.
Exactly, yeah.
But then also to know that your starting prices won't be your forever prices.
Yeah.
So it's okay that you're like not getting paid much for those first few projects. Like the testimonials and the proof are really the most important part.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to look at it like that
hard.
too, right? Like that's the compensation is not just the money. There's also the experience, the testimonials, all of that is also very valuable.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Cool deal. Anything else that's popping into your head around copywriting or marketing strategy? I always end with like, if there's one or two main points maybe that you'd want a listener to walk away with about this, what would they be?
Oh, that's such a good question. I really think just like starting and dabbling in it a little bit is the way to go. Like even if you're holding down your clinical job and you want to just write a few articles on the side, like give it a try and see if it's something that you do enjoy doing before you like jump ship. And as much as I love the paid courses that I have done, there's a lot, like you said, of like books and resources and groups that you can join where you don't have to pay for everything. Because I think the biggest holdback I see with clinicians is we don't trust ourselves enough. And so we hold ourselves back way longer than is necessary. So
Yeah.
get the education and the training, but also just trust yourself and start doing the thing and mess up a few times. I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna have some not great outcomes, and that's just part of the process. And it's that I think is the most uncomfortable part for clinicians because we tend to be perfectionistic,
Yeah.
high achieving, A plus students. And in clinical care, we don't want to mess up. Like that's someone's life, you know. And we don't want to mess up with marketing either because it's someone's business, but you can always redo the marketing and like fix things as you go. So
Yeah.
fail faster and then you'll succeed
I like
faster.
that. Yeah. Fail faster. Cool deal. Well, where can people learn more about you? Maybe connect with you. Maybe they want some marketing help from you. Where can they go to learn more about everything that you're doing?
Yeah, everything is pretty much connected with my name because I did not spend any time coming up with my business name. So KristaFraumAgency.com, and you can find me on Instagram, Krista Frahm Agency, on LinkedIn, Krista Frahm Agency. Like,
Okay.
I did not get creative in that department. I just skipped right over that and continued on creating my
Yeah.
business.
Hey, that's the way to
Yeah.
go. Sometimes
So,
simple, if it gets you out the door, it gets you out the door, right?
yeah, yeah. And now anytime anyone Googles my name, they find me
Yeah.
because SEO works.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but I'd be happy to provide some like feedback or information or resources or whatever people are looking for.
Cool
Yeah.
deal. Awesome. Well, Krista, thanks so much for taking the time. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.